Welcome to the Craft of Coaching podcast, where we dive into what it truly takes to become a skilled, confident life coach. I'm your host, Kate, head of the CLCC, or Certified Life Coach Collective, an ICF-Accredited Level 1 coach training program. We combine courage, coaching, and community to offer you more than just a training program, but a life-changing experience where you use your own personal transformation as the learning ground for supporting your clients. On this podcast, we explore how you can use coaching skills to support your clients or expand your own growth, all grounded in evidence-based coaching practices. Learn more about our program and get free resources for becoming a life coach at teamclcc.com. And now, here's today's episode. All right, Paula Jenkins is our guest today. She is a coach, a podcaster, and she has an incredibly well-performing podcast called Jumpstart Your Joy, and also a CLCC graduate. So she graduated from our Certified Life Coach Credential coach training program, and then went on to actually join our leadership team. So let's get ready, because she's got a lot of great insights on coaching and finding your joy and really owning what you're drawn to. Let's get started.
What are some of the things, obviously we're not talking about giving away confidentiality or talking about specific people, but as a general theme, what are some of the things that the people that you work with, either in a one-on-one capacity or that themes you're seeing across groups, what are they struggling with?
Well, I think a lot of people struggle with really finding their voice and also finding a way to put that voice into the world. And that could be, I work with podcasters, so that's one thing, but it also comes across in business and in life. And how do you show up as authentically you and then have the courage to really put a voice around that person that's really deep inside?
So there's like an authenticity that's happening.
Yes. And getting in touch with that. I think one of the really juicy things about coaching and whether that be a consulting role or a coaching role, is really getting in there. And as the outside observer and the person that is really, in a heart-centered way, becoming a guide and a companion to someone who signs up for coaching or consulting, like really getting in there and seeing their pattern and seeing who they are and seeing them for themselves and being able to mirror that back to them in some way and saying, hey, this is who I see you are. And what do you think? Does that seem right? And like, there's just something gorgeous about being able to do that and be in a space with someone to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's this way in which I'm getting this image of almost like a dance, like the client is sharing something about themselves. And then you as coach are distilling and discerning about what you're hearing and picking up on the broader themes and picking up on the little micro movements. And then you reflect some of that back to the client. And then because the client has that reflected back to them, then they get an opportunity to reflect on their own behavior or bring more consciousness to a pattern or a way of being. And then they get to share a little bit more. And then you as coach, again, you're in that distilling and that discerning, and it's just moving back and forth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And really the aha moments obviously are so fun. And I mean that though in obviously a really genuine way. It's not always fun, but the aha moments are definitely those little bits where, yeah, you're there with them as they discover something so precious and, I don't know, juicy and delightful or even frightening about themselves. And it's really that honor of being there and saying, I can stay right here with you as you unpack this thing, whatever it is. And I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you, and in your practice, you have focused a lot on joy.
Mm-hmm.
You have a wonderful podcast called Jumpstart Your Joy. It's very cool for me to be able to talk to you today because I've been on the other side of the mic where you've interviewed me, and you are truly a gifted interviewer. And I can so hear your coaching skill set showing up in how you interview and the care with which you hold a guest and unpack a question. But I would imagine that alongside joy, there's also fear, which is, of course, I'm going to bring up fear.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering, how do you And I'm thinking in terms of like practical applications, what do you see as entry points, or is there a particular exercise or a tool or a philosophy, a way of looking at it? How do you help a client enter into that space where they're wanting to live a more joyful life, but there's also probably this really intimidating list of things or reasons why they haven't been doing that thus far?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I think a lot of it comes from, well, what each of us probably knows what lights us up. And it's interesting because that's the starting point even for the show. And as you know, the first question I ask new guests is always what lit you up as a child? What were your earliest sparks of joy? And so I think if somebody's really gotten to that point in their life where they're out of touch, and it's so easy to be there, like if you've had children or a long career, or you've just gotten in the day to day of things, it's so easy to get disconnected and not really remember what brings you joy. And you're just going through the motions. So I think a first thing would be to get in touch with that thing, whatever it is, even if it takes a little bit of getting courageous and brave about admitting it to yourself that once upon a time I loved this thing. And then the fear that comes around it, I think, and this is something for sure that you helped me with so much, was how do you unpack all the shoulds that are probably propping up those fears and take a look at them, and kind of that Byron Katie piece of, is it really true? Is this thing really going to hold you back? Or is this thing really putting the impact, or do you want to allow it to continue to put the impact on your life that it currently is? And there's something in there about kind of sitting with the fear and very carefully and mindfully looking it over and asking it, what is it doing? And is it teaching you something? It's there for a reason, and you probably are clinging to it because it was serving you for some reason in the past. But how can you the other piece would be, how do you get back in touch with your inner child and tell them it's okay? Because I think fears are often deeply rooted in that piece. So how do we say, no, we're all right, and we can go forward with this thing that we really, really want to do? And the pieces will fall into place. We can set aside the fear and say, I see you, and I'm going to go ahead anyway.
I so love that you brought up the inner child, because I feel like there's this thing that happens. Tell me if you've noticed this too. Like there's this faction of life coaches who are like too cool for the inner child, like,
Oh boy.
like, oh my God, inner child. It's like so cheesy. And I just go like, I'm not saying that for you to heal an inner child, you necessarily have to I've heard of people who have I think Sark even talks about in one of her books, like how she felt she healed, her inner child was by actually participating in what would be seen as like regressive behaviors. So spending time in like baby mode, like wrapping herself in a blanket and asking others to care for her. And I just fall into the camp of like I'm not going to knock it if somebody says that it works for them. Although even though when I heard her description of that, or read her description, that I was a little bit like, it's a little even much for me, and I'm in California. But like on a very practical level, like nobody escaped childhood without at least one of two experiences. And one of them is going to be either some kind of trauma. And if you didn't have some kind of trauma or micro trauma, some kind of being conditioned to rein yourself in.
Yeah.
Because compliance is the name of the day when it comes to being a kid. Are you behaving?
So true. Especially the compliance one, at least for me. I think I had a fairly trauma-free childhood, for, which I feel lucky to have had that as a history. But I think there is something in there, even if you didn't have a big trauma, right? Like, I think there's still a little kid that feels like they needed something. And it's so interesting because even going through training myself, I was totally surprised that there was an inner child in there that just needed to be seen. And the things that I have learned by saying, I don't know, saying, yes, I see you. And of course, her name is Chloe Bernice because she's fancy.
I was going to say, when are we going to hear the name, Paula?
Yeah.
I know the name Chloe Bernice.
Yeah. Well, and of course she has two names, and she wears cowboy boots and a lacy dress and a prairie bonnet. And she's a sassy little thing. And until I really knew that side of me and re-embraced it. And then, I mean, even some days I'll put on a necklace or a whatever that like, I'm like, yeah, Chloe would love this. Like she's excited. Um, and she also gets really excited about talking, being interviewed. Like that's a part of the inner child for sure. And so it's been really interesting to me to see what happens when you get in touch with that. Because I think there's the extremes. I'm just kind of unpacking this at the moment, but like there's definitely the extremes of fear and intense joy that are coming from when you were a child. And until you kind of get in touch with that and calm down the fears and look at them and tell your inner child that you're going to be okay, I think it's really hard to get really close to the intense joy. Because I mean, I think if all of us just like closed our eyes and thought about, okay, what was it that I just adored as a child? I don't know, but I bet a lot of folks are like, they see themselves running after a firefly or spinning around in a frilly dress if you wore dresses, like whatever that looks like. But it was probably intense and you were all in and it was just great.
Yeah. And the thing too, on this thread of the coolness factor that happens in the coaching industry,
Yeah.
joy often does not look cool.
No.
Like but we need it. And I think that must be something that comes up for clients, because we have the sort of like, gotta look cool, or at least at the very least socially acceptable. There are those of us who have accepted we'll never be one of the cool people. I'm raising my hand for that one.
Yeah, but the second one here, yeah.
But like at the very least socially acceptable. And so like I want to keep thinking of this purely from like a coach in the coach seat working with a client craft sort of orientation. What do you do when you got a client who's just like too self-conscious? It's like super hard to get out of that self-consciousness.
Yeah. Well, I think that's such an interesting question too. I think there's something about it. It could be that the word joy is too much, and that's okay, right? Like I think joy has so many little nuances to it. It could be contentment. It could be just satisfaction even. Like that could, to get into the space and maybe inviting a client, okay, well, if joy isn't the thing, if you're not ready to go all in, chasing a firefly, whatever that iteration may look like for you right this second, what would be a step towards just feeling good? Or if you're not even at feeling good, feeling okay. It doesn't have to be cool. Joy could look like anything. And I think that's the part to unpack with someone as well. Not only that it could be degrees of joy, but that it could be that you're just making a choice to do something for yourself. Because I think the thing that kind of directs me is a Henry Nouwen quote that is around joy is a choice and we must keep choosing it. So I think whatever that thing is that wakes up in you each day and you want something just a little bit more or a little bit better or a little bit more easy, like I think following that for yourself, it doesn't have to look cool. Or maybe it does if you're very worried about it. It could be you go get yourself some really lovely earrings that make you happy. And that could be cool, or they could be nerdy or whatever they are, but like something that matches you and feels authentic to you. It doesn't matter if it's cool or not to anybody else. Or it could be cool to somebody else, and that's all right too. It's owning what feels right to you.
Well, when you find the people for whom it's cool, then you found your people. Like, yeah. I think that everything that you've just shared, like a fellow life coach, or someone considering becoming a coach who's going like, what kinds of things am I actually working on with a client? Often it's like people think of coaching as just being about a conversation. Sure. And it is, of course, on some level a conversation because that's how you relate with your client. But it's also about these very practical, tangible things that you then ask clients to do in their lives that are these little micro movements. And you've just given several examples of what that looks like. So, yeah. All right, Paula. Yeah. Oh, sorry. You were going to add one other thing?
I was going to say, it's all about the relationship too. One that you're developing with yourself, and then also one that you're developing with your coach. Like, I think it's that trust piece that you're going to trust yourself to start making better decisions or happier decisions or more authentic decisions. And you're also going to trust as the time goes on with your coach that you're easing into the relationship where they know you really well. So I think there's that.
I've said about my desire for clients, like what I wish for the world, I wish that we lived in a world where people completely and totally trusted themselves. And that's not a false confidence. It's not about bravado, because even when I'm very deep in my fear, I can be in a space of trusting that I can navigate it, even though that's deeply uncomfortable. And I think that trust that you've just named is one of the most important outcomes for a client. Like, people can come to coaching and they can say, what I'd like to get out of coaching is I'd like to write a book, or I'd like to change careers, or I'd like to have better relationship, or I want to like change how I parent. But like, and those are all, of course, tangible outcomes that if somebody implements them, life probably feels sunnier and better. But at the root of it, to me, there's that piece about totally trusting yourself.
Yes. Yeah. And I think anything, like you're saying, anything or most anything that somebody brings to the table, it also happens in podcasting. I mean, and I run a podcast boot camp, and it's interesting how much of this stuff comes up as somebody's about to put their voice into the world. And it's that thing where I need a sound studio. Oh, I need a better mic. Do you really? Or is this just resistance because you're not trusting, and you're not trusting that you are enough and that you can put this thing out into the world that is so precious to you. And so I think it's that trust piece. You don't need the mic. You can use the one that came with your phone. You don't need a sound studio. I'm sitting in the middle of my bedroom. Like these aren't things that should hang you up. But if you trust yourself, it's easier to get past them.
Right. Or if you just trust that you don't need to get past them, that the process in and of itself has value. Like right now, I'll give an example from my own life that could be applicable with clients. I have always, since I was a little girl, loved writing fiction. And I have found that when I spend some time writing fiction each morning, it's like the whole rest of my day, I'm more productive. It's the equivalent of that example you gave of, putting on something that feels like that, right little outfit, and it sets my day up in a really positive way. But I mean, it's not about, I got to get my fiction to the right place so that I can get published. Of course, it would be great to get my fiction published, and I would take great pride in that. But it's not about that end game. It's about doing it for doing its sake. And by the way, if anyone wants to know, my copy of Microsoft Word is, I think, from like 2006 or something, and gives me error messages all the time. And I need to actually do the thing where I sit down and upgrade to the latest copy and get all my stuff ported over. And I just always put that on the back burner. So I am proof positive that you can do something you love without having the very best, newest stuff.
Amen. Yes. I'm still using free old Audacity when I edit my podcast. So, yeah, I don't even need a Mac, turns out.
All right. Thank you so much again, Paula Jenkins, for being on the Craft of Coaching podcast today. It's always such a pleasure when coaches come to share their wisdom with the podcast. And I hope that you as a listener are also learning about all the different ways that you can approach your coaching practice. All right, that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Before you go, would you help us out and take a moment to give us a rating in iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you're listening? It really helps us get the word out to other listeners. And before you go today, would you like free resources to support your coaching journey? Whether you're considering becoming a coach or you want advanced coach skills training, access our coaching resource library at teamclcc.com. Again, that's teamclcc.com. Can't wait to connect with you. And again, thanks for listening.